everyone, and thank you for joining this session. We're going to be discussing resilience, recovery, and risk, modernizing customer communications on AWS with Precisely. Your speakers will be Kevin Ricks, Vice President of Product Management and Engagement at Precisely, Tamara Askatova, Senior Partner Solutions Architect for Big Data and Analytics at Amazon Web Services, or AWS, and myself, Sierra Huelta, Associate Product Marketing Manager at Precisely. Let's dive right in. All right, thank you everyone for joining. We have Tamara and Kevin, who I did brief introductions for, but would love to have them introduce themselves. Tamara, would you please introduce yourself to the audience today?
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Tamara Stachova, Senior Partner Solution Architect at AWS. I've been with AWS over 6 years, focused on big data and analytics, and working closely with our strategic ISV partner, Precisely. I'm really excited to join today's session on modernizing customer communications. This topic sits right in the intersection of resilience, compliance, and cloud innovation. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And Kevin, please introduce yourself.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Kevin Ricks. I lead the product engagement practice here for the CCM products for Precisely. Been with Precisely for about 18 years, and I'm really excited to talk to you about the innovations that we've made to do AWS deployment of our Engage One Compose and Engage One Vault CCM solutions.
Great. Thank you both for joining us. All right, let's dive right into it. Kevin, you speak with a lot of organizations in the customer communications management, the CCM space. What are customers most commonly wrestling with when they start thinking about modernizing their CCM environment? So what tends to be the catalyst for these customers?
The catalyst for customers when they look to modernize their CCM environment, it's really focused in two different aspects. One, around the feature capabilities within the CCM application. Are there new capabilities that we are coming out with, introducing that they want to take advantage of? And how can they take advantage of those new features, new capabilities? The second is all about infrastructure. So it's all about the operating system is going out of support. Their databases could be going out of support. They have changes in their information security infrastructure. So in doing that, they need to be able to move, to pivot. And how do they do that? When is the right time to do that so that they can remain in compliance with whatever the organizational standards are?
Absolutely. Now, Tamara, within our business at Precisely, we work with a lot of regulated industries, and I know that you see a lot of them as well. What do they currently most underestimate about what cloud infrastructure can actually do for them?
What I see organizations underestimate most is that cloud infrastructure does not just replicate what they already have, like lift and shift move. It fundamentally changes how resilience and compliance actually work. Let's start with resilience. AWS defines resilience as the ability of an application to resist or recover from disruptions, including infrastructure, dependent services, misconfigurations, and network issues. Operational resilience is embedded into AWS cloud infrastructure by design. Currently, the AWS cloud spans 123 availability zones within 39 geographic regions, each consisting of physically isolated partitions of infrastructure. So this built-in resilience helps organizations demonstrate compliance with less effort and redirect more resources to improve customer experience that drives revenue. On the compliance side, AWS services record 600 billion auditing events every day and run 5 billion resource configuration checks every month. For example, AWS services such as AWS CloudTrail, which record all API activity and user actions for audit purposes. Amazon Messi, which uses machine learning to discover and protect sensitive data. Or a key management service, which provides a centralized control over cryptographic keys used to encrypt data. All these services maintain audit trails and govern data residency continuously. They work together to support compliance. For example, financial services institutions improve their ability to meet security and compliance requirements such as resilience, data locality, data protection, and data privacy. They use AWS services to simplify cloud governance. And one more important point that I would like to add, when Precisely achieved AWS migration and modernization competency status, it validated that customers can move CCM to the cloud without sacrificing control, compliance, and reliability.
That's awesome. And I feel like that is a big shift from what we previously heard about cloud. I feel like there used to be a lot of like concerns about cloud being a risk. And now it's fully shifted to cloud being the enabler, the ability to be that safety net for organizations that have that scale that they need and that compliance. So love to hear that. Tamara, we'd also love to hear from, your and AWS's perspective. What does that good governance and data protection actually look like when a mission critical communications workload moves to the cloud?
And data security is very important. From AWS perspective, good governance and data protection for mission critical communication workloads comes with three things: shared responsibility, continuous controls, and built-in auditing. Security and governance operate under AWS shared responsibility model. AWS is responsible for protecting the infrastructure that runs AWS services. This is security of the cloud. And customers are responsible for security configuration and management of the service that they use. This is security in the cloud. This includes the sensitivity of customers' data, companies' requirements, and applicable regulations. With AWS, in terms of data protection and encryption, customers manage the data privacy controls, control how the data is used, who has access to data, and how data is encrypted. I've already mentioned about services such as AWS CloudTrail, Amazon Messi, and AWS Key Management Service. These services enable compliance, detection, and auditing, while allowing customers to securely generate and manage encryption keys. On the cloud data governance side, governance is a set of rules, processes, and reports that guide organizations to follow best practices. For example, AWS Control Tower provides governance and controls for data residency. This is a high-level rule that provides governance for AWS environment. AWS Control Tower implements preventive, detective, and proactive controls that help govern resources and monitor compliance across AWS accounts. So customers can establish governance across their infrastructure and meet regulatory requirements with comprehensive controls. And one more, that in terms of built-in auditing and scale, the difference from on-premises is fundamental. On-premises, organizations build and maintain their own logging infrastructure. On AWS, auditing is built into the infrastructure itself. For example, CloudTrail. CloudTrail is enabled by default for AWS account and automatically have access to the CloudTrail event history. So every API call, every configuration change, every encryption operation is recorded automatically. that the foundation Precisely builds on when migrating CCM environment to AWS for customers.
Right. Yeah. So you mentioned, those legacy environments. So I'd love to kind of, go back and get your perspective, Kevin. What are the hidden infrastructure and compliance risks inside those legacy CCM environments? The ones that customers only find out when something goes wrong.
Okay. So we work with a lot of customers who have multiple environments, multiple servers that they're managing. They also have, through acquisition, through um, changes of business locations and the likes. They also have kind of orphan systems. So they have a server that nobody knows about. So as we're talking with these customers and they have an issue where um, they may discover that there's a usage of a compose environment, a CCM environment that they have that nobody knew about. The software had an issue. It was running on an operating system or a database that's not modern. It's a version that's not connected to the other versions that they have deployed, because it may be deployed in building A versus building B. And we've seen this in some of our tech support cases. So what ends up happening there is that they now have to figure out, how do I rectify the problem that I'm having on this environment? Do I have to upgrade that to be consistent with what I have within the rest of the organization? Do I actually have maintenance and support on that rogue version, that version that's kind of disconnected or orphaned? So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of analysis on their side, a lot of auditing on their side, in order to see how it complies with just standard support maintenance from the software perspective for the CCM application, as well as what's available for the infrastructure that they're running on. And the last piece of that is all connected to what's been processing on that server, what's been processing in that environment, because it's now often from how they're really communicating, or how they're normally communicating with their customer. So in all of that, they have to really do a lot of internal kind of audit trails and audits around that, and working really with us on how we're going to help them rectify that situation, how they're going to rectify it within their IT and so forth. So it's pretty timely, it's pretty costly, and it's really a big compliance risk that they have, because they don't have visibility to this server that or this environment that nobody knows about. So it's not maintained in the audit trail or in the audit or anything like that. That if they modernized and upgraded and deployed on AWS, we can solve that problem for them, because they won't be managing servers. They won't be managing servers across facilities. They won't have to worry about managing sprawl and having that inventory. What they will do is they will manage a version being deployed on the cloud that will give them an audit trail of what's been deployed on the cloud, what's been deployed in AWS. So they always have visibility into that and make sure that they have that ongoing support, ongoing maintenance, and that they're in compliance with their organizational standards of how the software is being utilized, as well as the infrastructure.
Great. Thank you very much. I'd love to hear from you tomorrow then. What does make this partnership between Precisely and AWS, from your standpoint, what can customers achieve together that they may not have been able to achieve working separately with each other?
What makes this partnership distinct, I would say, is the depth of technical validation and how much we have built together, including mission-critical workloads. Precisely is an AWS Advanced partner with two AWS competencies, data analytics and migration and modernization as the competency. Plus, Precisely has Amazon Redshift, and Amazon RDS Service Ready designations. In practice, this means Precisely has demonstrated deep AWS technical expertise and proven customer success across various industries, use cases, and workloads. Precisely inherits the best practices that we have developed to satisfy our customer needs. Together, we support mutual customers globally across all industries. Customers migrating to AWS require expertise, tools, and alignment of business and IT strategy. However, customers can accelerate their migration to AWS by working with validated AWS partners. What I want to say, Precisely bring the CCM domain expertise, and AWS brings the infrastructure, resilience, and governance. So using Precisely on AWS, customers can move CCM to cloud without sacrificing control, compliance, and reliability.
Yeah, a great partnership indeed. Thank you so much for sharing that, Tamara. Kevin, this has been a great conversation, and I'm sure our audience is itching to understand, how they can, start this journey and what that journey might look like for them.
Sure. So I mentioned earlier how we have clients that have multiple servers or multiple deployments of our applications across multiple servers, across multiple facilities and the likes. So I talk to clients who have anywhere from, 16 servers, 30 servers, where they have the on-premise, where they have the CCM application deployed. And when it's time to start figuring out the migration, they have to take an inventory of what that looks like. So they have to take an inventory of that sprawl where they have software deployed. They start now figuring out what that infrastructure looks like and what that cost looks like for them to be able to upgrade our software, modernize our software in place on premise. As they're evaluating that and understanding what the cost implication of going and managing and maintaining that server sprawl, and really with not really and there's always risk that they'll miss a server, they'll miss an environment because of some of the sprawl that they have. Moving to the cloud becomes more optimal for them. As more and more folks are aligned with AWS as their partner when it comes to cloud, they start looking at AWS. The value proposition that we can offer them is that they can take those server workloads, whether it's 16 servers on premise, 8 servers on premise, 30 servers on premise. And I've heard it all from customers. I've heard it all. I mean, small and large implementations. They no longer have to manage server implementations. They manage a version implementation on AWS. What they do is we centralize that deployment for them with a script that they can run. They populate what they want that environment, how big they want that environment to look. And once they populate that, that environment is deployed on AWS for them to take advantage of. They take that deployment, that modernization, that upgrade from weeks and months to hours by migrating that workload up to AWS. What they're able to do is now simplify their reporting when it comes to compliance, when it comes to being able to evidence how much am I deployed and how much am I using, because they have a centralized location of all of that. The other key thing is that when it comes down to upgrade to the next version of product, they just simply have to do the same approach. Go in, modify the script or execute the script for that next version, configure what environments they need. Again, those 16 servers are modified in one script, those 30 servers in one script, and it's deployed. And they have an audit trail of what versions they're using. We went from version X to version Y. What that does for them, it takes out a significant amount of cost. It takes out the significant amount of cost of the server cost. Again, whether it's 8, 16, 30 servers you have deployed, that cost is taken out, migrated up to AWS. And when we talk about the fully loaded server costs, when it comes to the facilities costs, the electricity, the cooling, and so forth, all of that migrates up. All of that comes out. And then you take out and then you can replace some of the people cost from specialists who have to know how the CCM application works and performs and interacts with the operating environment, to generalists who are very familiar with AWS, trained and certified on AWS, that they can now go and leverage those folks in order to manage and maintain the entire CCM infrastructure. So the cost that you have in the people can be repurposed in the business for more of those your go-to-market to support your go-to-market initiatives versus your CCM application. The last thing I'll mention here is something that one of our clients actually sent us, in a note that said, hey, the approach you took in being able to deploy on AWS it's really simplified, because you have all of the intelligence that what's needed to run on AWS contained within a script. So I don't need to understand what databases to configure with, what operating systems to configure with. I just have everything contained within a script, and I can execute what needs to take place, and I can have my deployment. I can digitally transform my business from on-premise to AWS, again, in hours versus weeks and months.
That's a really compelling story, definitely. Thank you so much. So let's kind of wrap this up here. Appreciate all your takeaways here. Would love to kind of get those final nuggets of key takeaways from you, Tamara, and then we'll jump over to Kevin.
Thank you so much. So actually, that's a really important point you shared, Kevin. So very good use case. Customers are not just looking for technology. They are looking for confidence that nothing breaks during the move. And that's where the partnership between Precisely and AWS really comes together. The bottom line is CCM migration does not have to be painful. Precisely gives a clear path to modernize customer communications without disruption and handles the complexity. So organizations can focus on delivering better customer experience. So to bring it all together, systems need to be reliable, right? For that, AWS provides resilience by design. And together with Precisely, we deliver uninterrupted operations during migration. So that's the full picture. And thank you so much for having me today. It was great discussion.
Absolutely. Kevin, any final key takeaways for our audience here?
Oh, yes. So first, I want to thank Tamara for presenting with me. And I learned a lot, even from everything I knew. I learned a lot from your discussion. So thank you very much. So CCM on AWS doesn't have to be complex. And what we've done through the partnership of AWS and Precisely is we've taken that complexity out of the equation. We've made it simple to execute, configuring a single script that reduces modernization from version to version, upgrade or a shift from on-premise into AWS from weeks and months to hours. Once you start taking advantage of your workloads on AWS, you get to take advantage of the scale of Amazon ECS. So you take advantage of the scale of the operating environment. So you have that elasticity that's inherent within the platform. You also have increases in performance, and some of our early adopters of this have seen 8 to 14% improvement in performance. in their batch applications. So they're seeing the performance gains as well, taking advantage of Amazon to power the CCM application, simplifying the cost and the maintenance and operations by being able to leverage generalists who are very knowledgeable and trained and certified on AWS. So you have a common infrastructure of folks who can maintain and manage this application, and you don't have to have that rogue specialist who does something. So when you're taking a look at how do you want to modernize, how do you want to take advantage of digital transformation, how do you want to embrace cloud? The CCM application deployed on AWS is the way to go. Thank you very much for your time, and I really appreciated it.
Thank you very much, Tamara and Kevin. Appreciate everyone for tuning in today. We hope you'll join us next time.